let's call this meeting to order. And
Commissioner Ali,
yes, are present.
Commissioner Daniel, Commissioner Dillard,
She will be running late.
Commissioner Gathawell,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Nobis,
Here.
Commissioner Rivera,
Here.
and Commissioner Traore.
All right. Next is the land acknowledgement, and I can read that unless anyone else wants to. We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was once within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk. And because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other Indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossess Indigenous peoples of their homeland was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations. Next is a vote to approve the minutes from February 17th. Motion to approve.
Rivera, second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathawell,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Nobis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Rivera.
Yes.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next is public comment of items not on the agenda. First, we're going to start out with people on Zoom, and then we'll move to in-person folks. So if anyone in the attendance has any public comment to make, that would be a good time to raise your hand. All right. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment? Yep.
We're going to use the podium up here.
Thank you very much, commissioners. And my name is Amos, and I'm a resident of Iowa City. I've lived here for 31 years. I came here to go to the University of Iowa here. I have a family here and I have grandchildren. So half of my life has been spent in Iowa City. And I want to thank you very much, guys, what you are doing. You are giving us a voice. I've been here for 30 years. That's a lot, more than what maybe some of the people who are our leaders here have been in here. So I've seen this from childhood, from graduate school, all that. There's a lot that goes along with us. Yeah. And we do see you are trying to help us in all ways you can. We see your sentiments. We are really hurt in different ways. So this is a very good opportunity for us. And we want to encourage you to keep doing this because we hardly get voices. When I came here, we were only like 3 or 4 Africans at the University of Iowa here, students. We could only meet in one house, maybe to talk about our problems, but things have changed. The community has gone. 30 years takes a lot of people to grow. So there are things I've seen. It was very difficult for us during those early times. We are still experiencing some of those things, but we believe that given the numbers and given the changes in the country, we can live a better life. There are so many concerns that have bothered me. Some probably will take on when the TLC gets into the field, start working on these things. And I'm here today talking as a person, also as a representative of the African community. Yeah, I'm a board member of the African community. My concern today, because there are so many things that we want you to take up regarding all the issues that affect us, Yeah, with people of color, African immigrants and things like that. My concern today is about a brother who on the 3rd of February was found dead. Commissioner Wangoi has probably mentioned this to you a number of occasions. I do not know the details. And that's why I'm here today, because I want you guys to help us. I know it is not your responsibility to do that, but you do give us a voice. When I watch you on TV, on everything, whatever channels or whatever can get you, I get motivated, I get encouraged. Sometimes I'm very busy, I can't make it, but today something just was eating me up in my heart. Because this is a brother that we lost. We don't know the circumstances under which it passed on. So we wanted the city. The city is supposed to help us. We want the city to help us with the African community because this is not the first time. In the previous years, once in a while, an African dies, an African student or something happens, we never get justice. We are told, oh, he did this, all of a sudden he shifted back to Kenya or Zimbabwe or wherever he came from. And the thing dies like that. We don't want that to continue. We are tired of that. We are really, really tired of that. We want the city to help us. If there's a problem, we want them to investigate so that the family can have a closure. We know that it is one person who just passed away, but one person is a lot. Yeah, I won't want, the family was supposed to be here. I've not talked with them. They are traumatized. There's two kids left. This was a young guy who was only 42 years. Two little kids left. The wife does not know what to do. She has not been given better information about what happened. So we want, if the city is hearing or wherever is in charge, I know it is not your responsibility, but you always give us a voice and then you can recommend other things. We are having problems with legal aid. When we don't have money, we don't have the numbers, we are in trouble. There should be human rights department doing something where those who can't afford legal aid to help them investigate things get help. I'm seeing that's something we are very, very deficient in. Yeah, I know there's Iowa legal aid, but sometimes that is not enough. We need somebody who's advocating for people who can't get help themselves. So that is really my problem today. There are other issues that I think as you guys, we continue working together, we will let you know. We have concerns with the school system, healthcare system, other things. Work, immigrants working at night, Black people working at night, having problems with so and so and so. Yeah, they're that tough. Me, I've experienced a lot because I have a business. I went to school here, taught a little bit, some here, but now I have a business, but I get into a lot of trouble. Is it supposed to be here at this time or not? Why is it in this building? Those kind of things here. I can't talk about those details here, but they hurt a lot. Something just ate me today and said, let me go. If I get in trouble for that, let it be. But I hope there's nothing bad I've said. I'm not somebody who talks a lot. Yeah. So I really appreciate what you're doing, guys. And I know I'm talking too much. I usually don't talk too much. Yeah. So we really appreciate what you're doing, and we hope you'll help us with this case that's pending right now. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I just provide a quick sort of summary for
Yes.
our new commissioner? So Amos is a well-established member of the African communities on the Board of African Communities. He wanted to thank us for our work and also requested that we continue to fight to provide them a voice, specifically mentioned the death of a African male on February 3rd and talked about the importance of us making action on that point.
Thank you. So next is the update on the Excluded Workers Fund. And Commissioner Harris, if you want to. Is there anybody in the public that wants to?
First. Public comment first.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's anyone on Zoom that would like to make a public comment regarding the Excluded Workers Fund, now would be a good time to raise your hand. there anybody in the public? All right, Commissioner Harris.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. The words that I'm going to say right now, are going to be words that I feel. It's not going to be words that, I want to base off anger or being mad at politicians or anything like that. I myself have supported excluded workers, as well as others in the Iowa City community. We have always supported those guys. The work and the struggle by these families through one of the worst pandemics we ever seen in our life. I don't know how we can appreciate them or we can give them a hand of applause for doing the work that, Americans, they wasn't doing. And I'm an American myself. So some people, they might have been undocumented individuals, they might have been people that were formerly incarcerated. They might have people who struggled simply before the pandemic and it struggled even worse. Under these great burdens that they struggled through, I would think that, and I love the city of Iowa City, and I love Johnson County. And since I lived here, which has been only about 3 or 4 years, I would think that they would treat them better than the way that they have treated those people. The ARP funds was supposed to rescue Americans or people who were in America supporting our economy through I never seen a pandemic like that before in my life. Like I seen, wars and things like that, but the pandemic and the way, and to be honest with you, the amount of people that I seen lose their lives, I don't know. If anybody wants to argue with me about that, you can argue with me about that, but the pandemic has been terrible. So it was at some points that some people, they just was not eligible to be able to receive stimulus checks, or they couldn't get unemployment, let alone extra unemployment, which it's been a lot of complaints about that, about we've been paying a whole bunch of money, but there's a lot of people that work out here in the community and they didn't receive any stimulus checks. They did not receive any extra unemployment benefits. And then what we see right now is, Johnson County has rolled out their plan to how people can qualify for these plans. It doesn't make sense because one of the qualifications that they have on there is that they have to be eligible for Medicare and food stamps and other things like that. But if you don't have a social security number or you don't have anything like that, you're not going to be able to qualify for none of those. So that means you're going to be excluded. So you're going to be excluded before and you're going to be excluded beyond. So, with this, then one of the things that happened too with the considerations and the things that I talked about before is that they say, hey, we want to have a lottery. So you're going to say, have a lottery to say, we're going to help the people that we want to help. And it's going to be some type of casino style lottery or something. And if you don't get picked in this lottery, you're not going to get helped. And we can forget about any contributions that you did for the city of Iowa City during or before the pandemic. So we're just going to say, forget about that because maybe, some of the things that I've seen, it's been about, well, are you a legal citizen of the United States? And that shouldn't even be a consideration because if you help the Johnson County community, I think you a citizen of Johnson County. And it's been a few times that I went and I tried to help those undocumented workers. And the response that we got was Johnson County's deputies showing up with tasers gripped in their hand. And it you would think, and if a lot of people know me personally, you would think I'd be upset about that or angry about that, but it brings sadness to me. It brings a lot of sadness to me. I watched a lot of people go through this work for the past year and a half, and at the end of the day, it didn't, turn out the way that they wanted it to turn out. And also, I watched things where, to make it so bad, if you're gonna, a debate or a vote that you have or opinion that you have, that's up for public debate, and everybody should have ample comments. But instead, what happened was, and I was there to witness it myself personally, was they brought Johnson County deputies, which every taxpayer American pays for. They brought Johnson County deputies to the locations where it was excluded workers who couldn't, they didn't speak English. So because they couldn't speak English, they wanted to hear what was going on inside of the meeting. But they chose to stop those people from being able to have ample time to have comments on the things that they wanted to have comment on. And to make it even worse, there's been Johnson County officials. I've had to go through different things, whole bunch of different things to talk about this. So I won't single out a certain person, but there has been people who have questioned people's social security numbers, which I think is ridiculous. There has people who have even said things like, well, if Johnson County gives out funds to people, they're going to take those funds and give those funds away to people in countries abroad to help their families. I think as a human being, whatever you want to do with your money, you should be able to do it. If you need the money, nobody questioned about what Americans did with $1,600, $1,200, $600 stimulus checks. Nobody's questions what they did with those checks. But why do I have to question those guys? It just doesn't make sense to me. I thought Iowa City and I thought Johnson County as a whole was better than this. I have always, and I will always continue to support the excluded workers. And I will never give up. The excluded workers have 17 and I think possibly 18 different people or organizations in this community who support them. The politicians and the people who are elected, they need to listen to those people. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Do any of the commissioners on Zoom have any comment?
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, Daphne.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Harris, for honestly what are brave words. I don't know if I ever thought Johnson County was better than that or better than this, because the county has never shown that it actually cares about the people that we are talking about excluded workers. But I think it's important for all of us to remember that the undocumented people, the so-called illegal immigrants of today, will be the ancestors of Americans. They are raising Americans. Their children who were born here are Americans. And so when they look back and think of their home, Johnson County, Iowa City, if they bother to learn about this, what they will take from this is that we as a community turned our backs on their parents, on their siblings, on their aunts and uncles, and we let them face an unprecedented pandemic, a global crisis without assistance. And I, for one, I'm a little disappointed is not a strong enough word. I want to preemptively apologize to these people, because I am the children of immigrants. And I know what immigrants sacrifice when they come here. Nobody wants to leave their home. They come here seeking a better life, and they come here because they believe in what America has to promise. And it's unfortunate that our community is willing to just turn our backs on them because they don't have some piece of paper that somehow validates them as humans or Americans or whatever convoluted thought process goes through some people's minds when they're questioning people's like whether they're documented or whether they're going to send money back home. I don't know why any of this matters. I was raised on a person needs help. You help them. So with that, I yield.
Can I respond to that real quick? I like what you just said. I'm a father. I'm an African-American father, but my daughters and all of my children, they are Afro-Latino children. And I just think that we need hope in this country. It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be the way that it is. Unfortunately, it's going to be the way that it is for a long time, you know. When we had to start off our meetings, you know, every meeting we had to talk about land acknowledgement, about, you know, the things that people took from other people. It's just, so I agree with you, definitely. So that I yield.
I take the floor. This is Commissioner Wangui Gadua. What Eric keeps presenting here and pushing, and I'm also aware members of the public, like Amos from as a board member of the African Communities Network of Johnson County, and him being the liaison and the point person between the TRC and the African communities. He has been following and attending the work Commissioner Eric has doing in the community to push for the fund excluded workers. And it saddens me. One, I am an immigrant, and at the end of this year, I will celebrate my time since when I moved to Iowa City as a student and made Iowa City my home. I brought up my children, now they're grown. Now my grandchild is growing here in Johnson County. And I sit here asking myself, also as a coordinator of NISA African families, even though we advocate for African immigrants and refugees who are survivors or victims of domestic violence, we get overwhelmed by a lot of other issues. And even if the state and violence against women funding doesn't fund other issues other than violence, we end up having to triage the overwhelming need from the African immigrants and refugees. Therefore, among 17 different groups in the area that support funding excluded workers, NISA is a signatory. The African Communities Board is an active supporter because we are immigrants, our children are children of immigrants, and I know the work that they do. And right now, I don't have the statistics off the top of my head, but if somebody has a figure of the taxes that they contribute to Johnson County, and especially during COVID, because I have been one of those people as a multilingual, as a speaker of the many African languages spoken by Africans here, especially French, Swahili, and Arabic. I have been going physically, even to the plants, amid COVID, and it's documented. They were among the worst hit, impacted. That one is documented. And even in taxes. Now I ask myself, Johnson County, are we so unfeeling for other human beings who play a very crucial role in our county? If today, just for one day, we decided we are not going to do what we do best in contributing to pay taxes for our county, our beloved county and our city, I wonder that one day, what in terms of money, what would come out of Johnson County? And heaven forbid, I'm not calling for a revolution. I'm just wondering, because we are contributing members of our home and our community, and especially in the middle of COVID, that is well documented, and the negative impact. I go back to being sad that Johnson County, we are not doing better in including these workers. With that, I yield the floor.
This is Commissioner Rivera. I thank you, as always, Commissioner Harris, for your ongoing advocacy alongside the Excluded Workers Fund and representing the TRC well. I'm very glad to have you in that role, and I want to support you in any way that I can. I am a child of immigrants. My mom was undocumented for decades before she became naturalized. And I'm going to go ahead and toot my own horn and say that I'm a testament to some of the greatness that can come from undocumented immigrants, right? I think that I'm a pretty positive contributor to the place that I call home here and to this nation. And so I want to thank Commissioner Daniel for her words and those reminders about sort of what we owe it to the future generations for the kids who come after those who've immigrated here. But I also want to sort of make the case that those who immigrate here, my mom, even if I wasn't part of the equation, my mom, knowing her, she's one of the best Americans that I know. She has a love for this country and a dedication to this country that far exceeds most people that I know. And for those who have fought to come here by any means necessary for themselves, by the belief that this could be a great place for them, we really ought to recognize those individuals, right? They might not have the paperwork signed by the appropriate powers to say that they're Americans, but they're Americans, they're Johnson Countyans, they're Iowa Cityans. And so I don't want to be a body that excludes them from those titles, right? The actions that Johnson County have recently taken to change the Excluded Workers Fund into an open lottery for direct payments is worse than the initial sort of exclusions that undocumented workers faced with the initial disbursement of direct relief funds, right? In some ways, you could argue that that initial ignorance was, they just forgot about people, right? But to have had an established Excluded Workers Fund that the county had committed to, that they had made promises to, on the basis of tireless advocacy by several members of our community and members of this commission. And then the fact that they have gone back on that commitment and are now saying, well, this pot of money isn't actually yours, right? It's an active slap in the face to those individuals. It's actively anti-equitable. It should enrage us. It should extremely frustrate us. It should sadden us that this is the community that we're a part of. And so I hope that this continues to be a priority agenda item for us. I hope that if there's anything that we can do, Commissioner Harris, outside of these formal meetings to push the conversation forward from our position as commissioners with Iowa City, I hope that we'll continue to be receptive to that. Thanks.
I can just respond to what you said because I don't like to make nothing too long, but what you just said was just definitely just true. You know, sometimes, and Daphne has a hand up too, so she can go next after this. So, one of the things that, you know, that I did not include in my statement is that I'm not angry about it. You know, I'm not mad. I'm saddened. It just makes me sad, you know, because there was, you know, from the estimates that they gave out is that if they would have a lottery, 1 out of 10 people in Johnson County will receive those funds. So that means about 2,000 people. There's thousands of people who need help with those funds. And we don't know how we, you know, right now, you know, the COVID numbers and the COVID-19 numbers are getting better because of mitigation. And I hope it continues to be that way. But it doesn't make sense. You know, it's a few individuals that I don't really understand why they would go against those things. And I just don't get that. I wish they would. I have no problem speaking with them or talking with them or having a conversation with them, but I just don't know why they would go against those things to, you know, help people mitigate and, you know, get away from COVID-19 so we can get away from that. I just don't understand it, you know. And the last thing I would say is anybody, you know, any Johnson County officials, that's what I would say it as. That's what I would put it at. That want to speak with me or want to speak with anybody else or want to talk about what people need, just come and talk about it. Please just don't put any more inflammatory and racist and xenophobic comments on the internet anymore. We don't need that no more. I mean, we had enough of that. And with that, I yield.
Daphne, you can go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask at this point, is there anything for people who support the excluded workers, for people who would like to see justice served, and honestly, for people who just want to see a boost to the economy, because giving money to excluded workers, it doesn't mean that it's going to go in the stock market or into people's retirement accounts. Like, this is money that's going to be used in the community. And I think everyone would love to see a burst of commercial activity in our local economy. So what efforts, like what can people do, people like fellow commissioners, people who are watching the meeting, people who are present, what can we do? Or is there anything that can be done at this point other than making it clear that we disagree come election time? And I hope we all remember this come election time, but what can we do before that? Commissioner Harris, this question's kind of directed towards you, since you really have done a good job at being the commission's point person on this. And with that, I yield.
Okay. So what I would say is that most of the money, if I would say 80 to 90% of the money from any ARP funds will be spent in the Iowa City community. So that's why it doesn't make sense to me that they would put up so much of a big fight. Like, I don't understand why because some of those guys they need their trailers fixed, they need their houses fixed, they need their vehicles fixed, they need groceries, they need to get more things in their house. Most of that money will be spent in the Iowa City, Johnson County economy. So it makes me feel like that it's a different reason why they don't want to approve this funding for the agreement for the people that's undocumented and things like that, because most of that money that comes out will be spent here in Iowa City, whether it's going over to get a kid a boxing match or get a kid, get a younger person's vehicle fixed or get their door fixed because they didn't have their door fixed because we went through so many winter storms, or they might want to go over and get some stuff to fix their grass. Most of the money will be spent in the Iowa City and Johnson County economy. I don't get why they will fight against that. It seems like, to me personally, that it's like personal reasons why people don't want to support it. And that's really sad to me. So, because most of the money that would go out to people, it would probably be spent to get fit. I don't want to say it again and again, but they probably couldn't get their door fixed. They probably couldn't get their trailer fixed. They probably couldn't, fill their fridge up to feed all their kids. That's what they're going to go to Walmart. They're going to go to places that's in the Iowa City economy, which, the tax rates and things like that, that brings money into the county. So why would you fight against something that the government gave you funds to help people out, to rescue those people? And I'm a yield. I don't know what else to say. So
I have a question, I guess it's a question. So from my understanding from the last Board of Supervisors meeting, did it get approved and now the enrollment is open?
Yes, I can respond to that. Enrollment is open, but they changed the name of the plan. At first it was about the excluded workers, but now it's open to everybody. So me and you or anybody else here can go and apply for it. And then they said that they're going to put your name into a lottery. And then if your name get picked out, you end up getting $1,400, a check. And me personally, I can use $1,400, but hey, I wasn't, I know more people. I know people, 20,000. I know about 1,000 people that deserve it before I do or anybody else does. And I'll still struggle, but it doesn't make sense that they would do things like that. And one other thing that I would say about it is that they are tarnishing the reputation of the Democratic Party, or people who feel like they want to be progressive. They're kind of making it look really terrible right now. And also with the inflammatory comments, I know that plenty of people here have saw those inflammatory comments. And so don't duck around or look around those or act like you didn't see those, talking about, well, Johnson County gives out, funds to people that's going to send them back to their homelands with people that's struggling. Well, some of those people in their homelands, their children couldn't come to the United States. So I want to hear what people got to say about that, because that's just not fair at all. When you got a stimulus check or you got anything from the government, did the government ask you what you did with your stimulus check? What you did with that? You could have sent it to any way you want to send it to. You could have did what you want to do with it. How come they are scrutinizing these people and asking these people, what are you going to do with the money? What are you going to do with this? And what are you going to do with that? Why are they doing that? It's almost one of the most racist, and it's not racist, it's like xenophobic. Like, if we give you $1,400, you're going to send it back home to your home country. That doesn't make sense. And assistant city manager, I'm glad you're here, because I'm glad you can hear that. That doesn't make sense at all.
And so to follow up with that question, and I don't know how else to word this, so this might sound really silly, but not a lot of people pay attention to Johnson County Board of Supervisor meetings, or
It's crazy.
And I'm not saying that people aren't going to apply. And I know that there were other things that the county had offered instead of having an ID or a social security card or something along those lines, but there were still faults with that process. But with that being said, is there, are people like in the excluded workers fund, are they still trying to like apply? And I'm only saying this because if I wasn't in this commission, I probably wouldn't know. And I like, don't think a lot of people from Johnson County like pay attention to politics and like local government and things like that.
Well-
And so that's just what what I mean, like.
Well, maybe I need to be corrected or something like that. And somebody can talk to me about it, later on and correct me. But I read the whole list. And they said, they had requirements. You had to be a resident since March 2020. A couple other requirements that they had. You had to show your residence. But one of the things that really bothered me was it was like, well, you have to be on Medicaid. Well, how can you get on Medicaid if you need it? And so like, well, you need to be on SNAP benefits, or you need to be on, you can't get that stuff if you don't have the proper documents.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense to me. And it's one person, and I'm not gonna, I'm trying to, and actually I can call her name out, because she's not a elected official. She's a person that's hired in, Donna Brooks. She needs to get it figured out. She can't keep changing what's going to go on with the situation. None of these guys have SNAP benefits. They can't get reduced and free lunch. They can't get any of the federal programs because they are undocumented individuals. So that doesn't make sense to put that into that. And I hope that, because that's only the first part of it. So I hope that the city of Iowa City recognize that and see that it started off as, this has been a struggle that has happened for the past year and a half. And now we finally get to the end of it, and it's still restrictions. The city of Iowa City, they can do a whole better job than the Johnson County Board of Supervisors has done. And I promise, some people that I wouldn't, attack people personally, but I will apply people personally. A person that started one of these whole things and started one of these whole controversies, he voted against having a lottery. He voted against having a lottery because he said, he was like, it's just going to give money to people who don't even need it. And he voted against that. So, and with that, I'm going to yield because.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? Okay.
I just want to add that I feel very, very grateful to all the people and the bodies that are really, because it feels like really fighting for funding excluded workers. I am grateful. Those who are out there as individuals and organizations, I am grateful.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to agenda item number 7. And if it's okay with you guys, I would like to let the facilitator team present and then allow for public comment. That way they can know what they are presenting. And yep, I was just going to say, I think you're promoting all of the right people right now.
Yeah.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Do you want to do Eduardo Gonzalez, Angie as well? We've already decided.
Oh. What first button?
And Larry, do you have I was just going to say, is that okay? Or would you rather Kyle be the?
I'm happy, Vice Chair, to kick us off, and then there's speaking parts for all of us scattered throughout the presentation.
Perfect. All right, whenever you're ready.
Thanks. Good evening to everybody. It's whoops, sorry about that. It is wonderful to be back with this incredible group and to be able to have heard at least a part of your deliberations just now is also a privilege, and it excites, I think, our entire team to be in a position to potentially work with you all to achieve the goals that we hear you to have. So by way of just quick reintroduction, I think everybody knows me by now, but I'm Dr. Larry Schooler. I'm a senior director at Kearns & West. We are a facilitation and consulting firm with offices around the country. Our team from Kearns & West is now quite vast, and I'm very pleased about that. And I'm just in a moment going to give a short overview of the team, but I do want to introduce V and Kyle and Annie and Arnold and Eduardo and Angie, who are all here on behalf of our collective team. Other than Kyle and I, they represent different organizations, but we are a single team committed to working towards the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's goals. So it's great to be with you all to talk about that. As you can see on the screen, we are a diverse team made up of both national and local to Iowa organizations. I say local to Iowa City, to be specific. Kearns & West, as you know, focuses primarily on process design, process facilitation, third-party neutrality, conflict resolution, and public engagement. In this particular case, we've worked specifically on truth and reconciliation and related topics in other communities, and it's part of my academic background. We also spend a great deal of our time assisting communities like Iowa City with public engagement, and particularly equitable and inclusive engagement, mindful that not everyone can speak for 3 minutes at a microphone, but a lot of people have something to say when it comes to community affairs. So we work very hard through both analog and technological means to ensure that anyone affected by a decision has an opportunity to affect the decision. In a moment, you'll be hearing from each of the folks represented on this slide a little bit more about their organizations and their roles. I'll just simply say that as far as our firm is concerned, we're here to provide facilitation to the TRC to assist it with both strategic planning and the processing of all of the testimony that it will receive over the next several months, and with coming to some consensus on recommendations that they would like to include to the City Council, and then assist all of these other extremely talented organizations in helping carry out the work of the TRC. I think that it would make most sense to hand things over to my dear colleague, Eduardo Gonzalez, next to share about his organization. Eduardo.
Eduardo, you're on mute.
Thank you. It happens all the time, right? Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you so much, members of the team. Larry, thank you for your nice words. Well, let me just tell you that Think Peace is a new organization, but is also in many ways a well-established organization in the sense that it is formed by colleagues with a lot of experience. And the idea of Think Peace is to get together disciplines, wisdoms, knowledge that usually has been separated. I mean by that we are trying to integrate a human rights perspective, focus on the rights of victims, the rights of survivors, and on the other side, an approach that comes from trauma healing, mental health, and neuroscience. And we want to put all those things together. We are convinced that that brings an important perspective for healing in local communities. The other thing is that we really believe in the local. That is, we think that conflicts emerge and are experienced in the local perspective, and that is where they start and then possibly escalate. And that if we want peace, reconciliation, a healed society, it is important to emphasize our work in the local. There are so many stories, so many words that people want to share, so many experiences, and so much wisdom waiting to be channeled in the local, that I really do think that working in communities, in towns like Iowa City is the place to be. Just listening to the first couple of testimonies this evening, it's obvious that there is so much stories, there's so much pain that needs to be shared and needs to be addressed. So that is our approach. What we would like to do with the TRC is to help particularly in one aspect that I think is quite clearly emphasized in the legal mandate for the Commission. The Commission is supposed to do truth-telling, and truth-telling is supposed to be a process of storytelling, that is receiving from the community their testimonies and using testimonies and using the trust of people who come with their stories to initiate a process of empathy, a process of catharsis, and a process of learning. That means that this commission will have to organize a number of events to give voice to people who usually feel voiceless. And this means that the commission is not a space where it is necessarily the commissioners who bring their voices, but the commissioners who listen to the voices of the community, as we are seeing now. So what we would like to do is to share the experience of different truth commissions across the US and around the world that have done precisely that have organized hearings to bring, to give voice to survivors. We want to look into the specifics of facilitating societal participation, community participation, and we also want to support our colleagues in Kearns and West and our local partners to figure out what is the best way to ensure that different sections of the community feel included in the Commission's work. That is the logic of what we want to do. We want to emphasize the public activities of the Commission. We want to help you guys figure out how to organize it, how to do them, how to run them, and work with our partners, particularly in your city, also our colleagues in Kearns and West, to help you run those events that I think are going to be historic for your city.
Before I turn to V, I just want to make sure that the Commission is aware, I know they've heard this before probably, but is reminded that Eduardo is a veteran of probably more than a dozen TRCs as a direct staff member or consultant, including in his native Peru. His expertise is really unmatched globally, and it's a real great honor to have him associated with our work, but it is just as much an honor to be able to team with multiple organizations who have such a rich understanding of Iowa City. And so I want to turn to V next to talk about her firm.
Hi, yes, thank you so much. Definitely with a stellar team here. V Fix My Rise, and I apologize, it is bedtime at my house, so you may hear complaining from my smalls. I am the CEO and founder of Astig Planning, and we are a planning firm located here in Iowa City. We've come before you before, but just wanted to give you a little bit more background. So we are really focused on community and environmental planning, and particularly climate impacts and social justice. And that those two aspects very combined. As we know, climate change impacts will impact people that are the most vulnerable, most underestimated, and under-resourced. So that's really the reason why I started this firm, was because I realized that most planning firms don't get out from behind their desks and get out into the communities. And we often plan for communities when we don't have all of the information, all of the experiences, the lived experiences of our community members. So that's really what we strive for. And we've done a lot of this very locally and across the state of Iowa. So we were part of the outreach and education aspect of the Campus Safety Action Plan for the University of Iowa. And there's a lot of tensions and things that needed to get healed, still need to get healed, and throughout that process. And we're really honored to work with students, staff, and faculty, and really led a process that tried to listen very closely, and also to not re-traumatize people as we tried to move forward with a new vision for campus safety. We've also done a flood resilience action plan for the city of Coralville. And through that process, we worked with the Coralville Community Food Pantry, where we worked alongside them to make sure that we were reaching people who were housing insecure, food insecure. And when flooding happens, those are the people that are impacted immediately. And so we knew that we needed to include their voices and their experiences, and then bridge the gap between their stories and their experiences with decision makers. So we were hosting workshops where decision makers and community members were attending. And then we're also racial equity consultants for nonprofits. We're currently working with coalitions across the state of Iowa on the food system, which is really exciting to see. We may not ever see food as something that everybody should just have in our lifetime, but I feel like we are hopefully planting that seed now. And I think our role here is really to hold space for healing through facilitated dialogue. I know we've talked about circles in the past, and we, myself and Annie and Angie, have been in dialogue with Meskwaki First Nation people, and feel really good about how we're moving forward with that. And also want to be flexible and note that healing can happen in many ways. So in addition to that, we will probably be utilized during the design of the outreach and engagement aspects throughout the process. So honored to be here, and I can turn it back over.
Thanks, V. Before we continue, I just want to make it clear that our team ranges in age from approximately 2 years old to some undefined higher age. All right. Nice to have the Gonzalez family well represented, and I'm sure the Fixmer-Arias family will contribute as well. And the Schooler boys are downstairs. Let me turn to our good colleague, Angie Jordan.
Thank you, Larry. I will also this. It is bedtime over here at the Jordan household as well. So I apologize for nothing, and hope you can accept whatever you hear. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. I'm Angie Jordan, and today the hat I'm wearing is my Banjo Knits. It's an LLC. It's where I'm focusing on really prioritizing getting paid for the work that I do. Most of you might know me through the stuff that I've done through the South District, a lot of neighborhood advocacy work on getting people excited and pumped to be around each other, whether that's through our annual events. We've got our 6th annual neighborhood cleanup coming up, really getting residents in the area to not only, learn about where they live and who lives near them, but just to be pumped and excited about it and coming together to make change. I've done work with the arts, very grassroots level. We've got the mural that shows a big piece of what we do, but we also, piece of it that folks don't know is for 2 years worked on getting mural education and advocacy through the arts into our public schools through the work that I was doing, making sure that they had guest speakers and got to do their own community murals at their own sites. Done a lot around literacy and increasing access to literature, particularly in my neighborhood, but actually also throughout Iowa City with the Bike to Books and our Little Free Library adventure. And that is something that it sounds kind of hokey, but I love the roots of it. It's in a parent-teacher organization, and it united several different organizations at the parent-teacher level. And we wanted to increase our kids' ability to read. And we wanted to do that through increasing access. So not just building little free libraries and installing them, but also getting folks excited about being a steward of a library, how to stock your books, how to recycle your books, how to get people excited about your books. And then building wraparound programming so that we're having essay writing contests where we partner with the International Writing Group at the university to judge our kids' essays, and the winners, their books get placed in all 30 of the libraries. Bookmark art contests, a lot of different contests, but our kids just weren't participating in them at the city level. So we created our own and highlighting our local artists, and again, really promoting them, getting all their bookmarks and their art just out there to the public at the public library and in other places. A lot of little things, but my motivation is always about connection and curiosity. And so with Banjo Knits Empowerment, I'm excited to start this team. And I think my role really is going to be in helping to design, but also to organize. How do you get all these folks into one room? How do you collect the data? So really organizing pieces of it in promotion. I have learned a lot and there's so much more to learn, but I think I'm pretty good at getting people excited about things that they don't know about, and also about things that they've been holding onto or keeping in their pocket because they haven't felt like it was worth it or that anyone would listen. So for the past 15 years, that's what I've been doing personally and professionally. And I'm really excited about learning how to do this with professionals like Eduardo and Kearns and West to really bring that and build capacity in our area. You see three. Annie, V, and I were here, but we're also excited to bring more community partners in. And that's part of the work that I personally feel is a role for me, to be getting community partners on board and to be getting folks to participate. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Larry.
Thanks, Angie. I just have to confess a bias that I love Banjo Knits as a name of an organization. As a pianist myself. I don't think piano knits really works as well. Annie's going to go next, our esteemed colleague from Mediation Services of Eastern Iowa.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Actually, I put down my background here. I guess maybe I want to say a bit about our organization. It's a real small 501c3 local. It was founded by a bunch of grassroots folks who got trained in mediation. And really the kind of mediation we got trained in was where a mediator is just helping set the stage so people can say what they want the other one to hear. And it's set up in such a way that they can listen to the other person. The other person is not going to misbehave or talk in a way that's hard for them to hear. Anyway, so that's been the focus of this organization. It oversees a couple of court-connected mediation programs, has done and does restorative justice in referred cases and other things. Anyway, so I guess what I want to say is I really support the truth-telling, and I really feel like there are at least hundreds of people in this community who have stories to tell about harm and disproportionate harm in our community. And so I really want us to be ready for that. A couple of things that I bring, I've helped people prepare for and have hard conversations in personal and court situations for 25 years. In the early 2000s, I helped film and edit the video White Privilege 101, Getting In on the Conversation. We filmed presenters and participants in a couple of white privilege conferences. And the White Privilege Conference was actually started here in Iowa. And it was developed to educate people about systemic racial inequity and other systemic inequities and intersectionality. As a community partner, I'd love to do anything I can to help this work. And I'm not, Angie and V and I have done some good work together already. And what I can imagine helping with is designing the outreach and engagement and possibly assisting in offering the healing processes. And I'll get back to that in a minute. I think it's really essential that we promote building our local capacity so that we can continue the truth-telling processes ongoingly. And so I think that it's real important to build in, and Eduardo has said this is part of his process, mentoring diverse community members so that they can do that work and do that work alongside real time and also be hired as community partners. So that's, I'm a big supporter of that. And finally, let's be honest. I realize that as a white woman, there might be people who don't trust that I can build a place where people will feel and perceive that it's a safe space to talk. And truly, truly, if anyone is concerned about that, anyone from the TRC or the community, or even in my own assessment, I will step back. I will not be involved. So I just want to hold that up for us in this meeting and the community, that it's real important to recognize what will work and what won't work. And I want to be transparent about that. With that, I'll toss it back to Larry.
I want to acknowledge Fee, Annie, and Angie, but I do want to echo something that Annie just said, which is that as a person who gets labeled as white, it's not the way I primarily identify myself, but I know that's the way a lot of people in the world see me. I share Annie's desire to step back in the cases that, like she describes, so that a safe space for truth-telling can be preserved. So thank you for raising that. It's a brave thing to talk about, and I appreciate it. I think that this slide is meant to just cover, of course, generally speaking, what we are proposing to do for you all, in line with the original call for proposals that you made probably some 8 or 9 months ago. But we are here to help you do your work. We would not be advocating for any particular outcome, but we are, hoping that we can assist the TRC in both including the entire Iowa City community and anyone with interest in the Iowa City community in your process, empowering people in the community to help with the process of truth-telling, truth-gathering, and assisting with the combination of facilitation of your meetings and assistance with your public events. This is a difficult slide probably to see from your vantage point, but this is a layout of the different roles and responsibilities that we anticipate going into the different organizations on our team. It's really important that I emphasize here that even though there are sort of high-level headings that say Kearns and West and Think Piece, our anticipation is that ASTIG, Mediation Services, and Benjamin's are involved in every step of the way, and in as much as they feel like they can be and want to be, because this is not a project that benefits as much from anything that is, say, cookie cutter borrowed from somewhere else as much as it does informed by a rich understanding of Iowa City. And Kyle Vent on our team is certainly familiar with Iowa City and has lived there. And at the same time, we are fortunate that people who live in Iowa City now are in a position to help us drive the work that this TRC wants to do. But as you can see, just briefly, we at Kearns and West are meant to help more on the process side with the TRC. Think Piece is meant to help more with public events. But you see a specific line here for Banjo-Knits on the diversity market side, but everywhere you see local partners, there is imagined to be a role for ASTIG, Banjo-Knits, and Mediation Services as well. We, as I've said many times, don't view this like we do really any other project that we have or have ever done. Truth and Reconciliation is something that I've been working on for almost 20 years now, and it is more than just an interest. It's a personal and professional passion, and certainly our team includes people who have an earnest desire to see Iowa City and Eastern Iowa thrive from their lived and worked and growing up experiences. And our past lived experience in the city amongst our team is certainly something that we think is important to our success and yours. I also just want to acknowledge, as I stop share, the presence of Arnold Daniels Jr. Arnold did approach the TRC several months ago with an offer to assist. We've had several fruitful conversations with Mr. Daniels, and we are still looking to finalize and solidify the best role for him to play. But we anticipate that it would be in some sort of facilitative capacity, likely for the TRC itself. And that's something that we're going to continue to work on as we proceed. Team, have I missed anything that we needed to cover? Well, it's a privilege to be before you all again. We hope that we can win your trust and confidence to work together. And with that, we'd hand things back over to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so I don't forget, Kyle, do you mind sending that PDF to Stephanie just whenever you can. So now, do you also mind adding Sarah Omar? That's a part of, to the panelists. Thank you. I just
Yeah,
saw
and
that.
we Sarah Omar and I were facilitating the community task force on policing in Elgin, Illinois tonight, and I drew the fortunate straw to join you all at the beginning of the presentation, and Sarah stayed behind to finish what we needed to finish in Elgin. So I'm delighted to have her. Sarah is one of the leaders of our equitable and inclusive engagement practice. She's very well-versed in truth and reconciliation from her studies at George Mason, and it's great to have her as a part of our team.
Hi, everyone.
Good to have you, Sarah. Okay, so, and before I go to public comment, I just wanted to remind everyone, we had kind of spoken about this a few meetings ago, but Eduardo had spoken to us about the TRC course that Think Peace was offering. And I know that that starts March 20th, I believe. Eduardo, if you want to give a little bit more information on that, and I'll send that flyer that you sent me to Stephanie so that she can forward it to the rest of the commission. But if you want to talk about that really quick.
Yes, very briefly. Thank you so much, Amel. Basically, Think Peace is offering, together with the Truth Telling Project, a 6-week course on transitional justice. We are going to be discussing why looking into the past is significant, important for societies. We will discuss truth commissions and what has been the international practice about this institution. We will discuss reparations, and we want to look into specific approaches to transitional justice, such as an approach via gender and approach via indigenous peoples. So yeah, it's a course that we hope that you will find useful, and all of you are heartily invited to participate. Oh, I'm here, my love. Yeah. So all of you are heartily invited to participate in the course.
Eduardo, please introduce the project manager of our team.
The project manager is called Valentina.
Thank you, Valentina and Eduardo. Okay, so let's start with public comment from attendees via Zoom. If anyone has any questions, now would be a good time to raise your hand in the public. Okay, nobody on Zoom. Looks like we've got someone. Yes, sir. We've got someone in person.
I welcome you back, Council West. I've been following. I'm a member of the Iowa City community. As if you were following earlier on, I talked and I said I've been here for 32 years. Half of my life spent in here. So I've learned so many things. It's a very good place. I've got a lot of education, learning, and things that are now helping me in the community. Yeah. And this is not really to say that something was wrong in the beginning, but there were some limitations. I did not earlier on. I just want to make you know that this is something that bothers some of us out there who have not been attending the meetings in here. We really saw that your approach was very limited in terms of involving us, somebody like an African. I mean, the African board is very, very difficult. It's not that it is difficult. We have our cultures, how we tell stories, how we talk to whom do you trust? What is this information going to be used for? These are issues that have really, really bothered us among ourselves. Even we have our mini TRC among ourselves, and we struggle with all these things. You call people for a meeting, sometimes they don't want to say, they don't trust you for all kinds of reasons. So this approach we are giving is very useful this time. And this is going to help. I don't know whether multiplicity of ideas working together, bumping into what we call diseconomies of scale, I'm an economist, are going to come in at some time where too many people doing one little thing and neglecting other things on the other side. I hope you're aware of that. The other thing is the issue of trust. I've not heard, or maybe still working on it, or it's hidden somewhere in a document, how you are going to deal with these issues of talking to us who are Africans, who don't trust the authorities, other things. Earlier on, you said, you heard me say, I don't know whether I'm going to be in trouble. There's a reason for that. After 30 years, you experience a lot of things. I can't say them here, a lot. And sometimes, given your knowledge and other things, you know this is wrong. It should not happen like this. And you don't want to talk about it because you don't know what will happen to you the next day. I have grandchildren. I have a 12-year-old grandchild. I have American citizens. So I do not want them to feel bad because this is happening to so and so and so. I do not know yet. This is going to be tough. At the moment, I don't see any migrant background in there, all American. But Iowa City is really, really growing, a growing place for immigrants. I don't know in your capacities there, what skills and technical capacities you have for communicating. I know Mr. Eduardo, Dr. Eduardo, has been going to Africa, Mali, or South Africa. So he's going to bring a lot of that here. But remember, even among ourselves in Africa, there we mistrust ourselves. Even here in Iowa City, we have different ethnic groups. We mistrust ourselves. And I know you're going to be aware of that. So that's one element. The second element I'm worried about is, what is the threshold you are going to look into? We do not want a lip service to say, okay, the city gave them this money, that this project, the project, these volumes. I know it could be voluminous, but what is going to be the threshold of validity that can convince somebody in the city council, the manager, or somebody going to take action on something and say, this was a bad one. This needs change. Do you have any idea to let us know? I know this is theoretical, but at what stage do you say 2 is sufficient, 3 is sufficient? In the TRC theory, whatever you guys are doing, yeah, that's not my field. Yeah. At what level do you say this is sufficient enough to make a change? Because that's what we are looking for. That's what we are missing. So these are things I really want you to think about when you're talking with us, our communities. If you figure out the other black box I just told you about, the whatever. So that's a layer I'm really, really worried about. The third one, you stated very well there in the slides. Each slide, we are going to engage the community, this and this and this. That was missing a lot last time, you didn't. So this is a very good attempt. At least we can see that you are really worried about that problem. But we still don't know how. Maybe further meetings and additional information with each group. Your different groups, each group probably is using a different approach. I don't know whether you're going to come to a conclusion, this is the approach we're going to use, but probably one approach is not good. You have to use different approaches. Some approaches probably you learn on the way. We Africans, sometimes we are difficult to deal with. Yeah, we don't trust, as you see there, there's no immigrant cooperation there. I'm not there. I'm not there because of some problems we face, barriers we face. Probably we have a firm, maybe we have a consultancy. At the moment, it's not there. Why? Why do you think that's the case? Those issues are the things that are worrying us, that we want you to be careful about. So it's just going to be those issues that probably, at the end of the day, I can just say, hey, Mr. Amos, it's a big volume, I can read it, but is it going to convince anybody? The city will put it there in the bookshelves like the other service they do. They do a lot of housing service in here. But at the end of the day, we don't know what they do with those things. I follow these things. Sometimes they send me those surveys, and I don't even know what they do with them. Those are things. The fourth one, you will have to tell me how you are going to convince the city to give you this information that they never want us to get. They have reports, survey reports on housing discrimination, income discrimination, funds. There's no probably a minority business that has ever received this small business funds in here. Those things are out there, but maybe one or two. We have those issues. So I'm really, really worried about how that is going to be done. Yeah. I think maybe at the moment I'll leave it there, and I don't know if I'm going to respond, but I'm posting like the 4 areas that I think I need answers to. I want to reemphasize the threshold of, by threshold, I mean, How sure are you going to make sure that the information we're getting is very valid? What level of details do you need from us to convince? Is it going to be a survey or not? Is it going to be personal? I know a mix of those things is really the good thing to do. But we are starting, and I think we're in a good way. Yeah, to go. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Amos.
much.
I'll leave if any of you guys want to answer. Kearns and West, Stieg, Banjo.
Go ahead, Annie.
I guess what I'd really like to emphasize when we're talking about having a diverse team of people who learn how to do this, this is like throughout the community. So I figure when I imagine that, I'm imagining people of different ideas, immigrants from different countries, people throughout the community who represent people who would be trusted by a different part of our community. So I'm thinking that it's a great number of folks. When I speak like that, I'm not thinking of the three of us who you happen to be seeing here tonight. I'm thinking about people who, once they know that that opportunity is there and that Eduardo is there to mentor them, and they understand and the process is more fleshed out, then they step up and become that person who is a trusted person for the people in their community to come and share in a safe space. So I guess I just wanted to make that clear, and I don't think that when I spoke earlier, I did.
I would also add and thank Amos for bringing that up, because I know just from my own personal experience, the idea that I or our team or the team of three or whomever could ever speak for everyone, it's getting tired of people thinking that that's the truth. On the other side, we also need those who do have a pulse or an access point or a voice that hasn't been heard or shared. We do need them on the team. And like Annie said too, I don't want to pressure anyone. At the same time, we've got to start somewhere, and I'm excited that we're starting here, but we need more people, more voices, more bodies, and different perspectives, or what's the point?
Nothing to add. Well said.
All right. If there's nobody else that wants to make public comment, I'm going to do a commission discussion now. But before we all start, I just have a question for Stephanie regarding whether or not like a vote can happen. And I know it's not written like this on the agenda, but I just wanted to make sure that it is okay if we vote on hiring the facilitators before we decide as a commission on the budget, since the budget was already approved, and then later ask the council about the budget. Does that make sense?
So you want to vote first to select them or this proposal?
Yes.
And then vote on the amount?
Yes.
I want to get comment
so
first.
Tonight?
Just on voting for them, yeah.
The agenda item is discussion on facilitator proposal. I don't know if that would allow enough notice to the public that there was going to be a vote. Why don't you discuss and let me think.
And you'll mull it over. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So if any of the commissioners who are on Zoom, if you guys want to make a comment, now would be a good time to do it.
What are we voting on? I'm confused.
No, I was asking Stephanie if we happen to want to vote to hire the facilitator or for the proposal before we agreed on the budget, if that would be appropriate. And I only ask because there was already a vote to approve a budget last year from council.
So we're voting on
I was
whether
asking hypothetically,
hire-
no, it's just because it's not on the agenda. It's not written specifically like that. So I wanted to ask for like legal purposes and for just because it's just a discussion on that. So I just wanted to make sure in case we wanted to decide to do that, if it was okay.
So right now, Sakal, all we're doing is going back to a discussion regarding the presentation that was made tonight, and we're not at this time making any formal vote.
All right, thank you.
This is Commissioner Daniel. I just want to thank everyone for presenting to us again and taking the time to talk to us, and by extension, the Iowa City community. And with that, I yield.
Thank you. Does anyone in person have any questions for the commission or the facilitators?
Pertaining to some of the points that Amos made tonight, I wanted to maybe see some of how your sausage could hypothetically get made when it comes to, for example, the involvement of leaders within the African community and the African community members themselves. How would this team go about initiating that process?
I don't want to put any members of our team on the spot, and I think that people like Angie and V and maybe Annie are a little bit better equipped just to speak to the particular contours of Iowa City. I would simply add or contribute that, Annie's comments and I think others related to trying to provide training and resources for members of the community themselves to engage in this work with us is our goal, and the way of recruiting in particular communities is something that we very much need advice and even leadership from people like Astig, Banjonets, and Mediation Services to bring about, and the Commission. So certainly if V, Angie, or Andy wanted to add anything else, I'm happy to yield. But I think we earnestly desire to see this be a whole of community collaboration, and our part being to help position the community to do the work with our support.
V Fix My Rise here, and then please others jump in. So typically when we work with communities, we cast as wide a net as possible, and that means working with people who are serving underestimated communities or under-resourced communities. So typically we would start at like nonprofits, we would work with the commission, we would work with the city, and we would do by mouth. We would put things on, bus routes and laundromats. I think that you just do a full campaign that is very aggressive to see who can be here, and it's multilingual. We make sure everything is translated, that we have the resources that we need to reach people. So whether that's like working with the neighborhood centers, working with inside out reentry, working with, we're talking about like the food pantries and your neighbors. It's going to take all of us really to find who would be interested, and we just get as much of the word out as possible. I don't know if that's taking out a billboard or doing, some news spots. I think that really it's just it's as many community connections as we possibly can make, and partnering with as many people as possible to reach as many people as possible. And we know that there are leaders in every community, and we can reach those leaders, and those leaders have the trust of their communities. And so we hope to build that trust. One of the things that we say on our team is moving at the speed of trust, and that takes time. And so I think that throughout this whole process, you'll see, accountability, you'll see a lot of checking in, and, those measures that really try and make sure that there's reciprocity, that it's not just an extractive process, that it's really collaborative and transparent. So those are some of the things that I know that we do and we strive for, but I'd love to hear others chime in as well. those are just some thoughts off the top of my head.
I would also add, Angie Jordan here, I would also add that, it's like V had said, a diverse way of outreach through channels that are established and new channels, and that it's a continuous one. So it's not just a one-time, okay, everybody who's interested, and then we hit it hard and that's it. It's throughout this entire process. And when people are ready to come on board, whether they just heard about it, like, whoa, how come I didn't hear about this? And they're ready now, or they've been watching and waiting and trying to figure out, where do I fit in, or do I even trust this? That there's always engagement and space to onboard them throughout all this, even if it's at the very, very end. So I wanted to add that into the space as well.
Well, cool. And what I'd also like to add is, to the TRC, you guys put together a list of organizations that were your partner organizations that you were networking with. That would be a good start. Also, I think if we think of everyone in the room tonight, we all have people who we can reach out to in different parts of the community and then give them enough information to keep rippling it out. So that just on an individual to individual basis, I think is there too. Just adding that in, because that's, what we want is a process where people know they can know enough about it to trust that they want to be part of it, whether it's through being one of the people who helps make those listening sessions happen or somebody who's going to tell their story, or both. So we want to get that word out. And I think Eduardo's going to help us a lot with in the TRC, as you guys shape your process, that'll be also part of what can be told to people. So thanks.
And then the final point that I would add to this, and perhaps to go back to one of Amos's other points, which was how to ensure that the stories that are documented make impact. I see that to be the primary role of Kearns and West in Think Piece, is to take those multiplicity of different approaches and provide a common vocabulary and structure that can help to organize those stories, document those stories in an effective way so that it can speak back to sufficiently document the various stories and perspectives that we're hearing across all of the different methods that have been laid out in our proposal, from storytelling to art to diversity markets to circles, and I sort of see that as the central thread that Kearns and West and Think Piece play across this process.
Thank you, Kyle. Do any other commissioners have questions?
I have a comment, but no question. So.
Go ahead, Benji first.
Yeah, I am following up with V and Angie. When you said on the methods you're planning to use to reach people we know in our Iowa City are very marginalized, they're unseen, they're unheard. As far as everybody is concerned, they're not even seen. But mostly what is seen is on the taxis that come into the city. You mentioned notices on laundromats and other places. Those methods, how have they worked so far?
So we've had fairly good response. I think that to reach people that are unresourced, you have to really go to where they are, and everybody needs to wash their laundry and gather in places for where they get the groceries. And so I think those have been somewhat effective in reaching people that normally would not have shown up. Yeah, I mean, it is, of course, also dependent upon the fact that you are talking to people who probably have multiple jobs, have families. So if you're asking them to attend something, it better be right where they live. A good example was when we worked with the Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition. on a housing advocacy project in the South District. And we had it right in the courtyard of the apartment buildings. And we had food, and we put, signs up in the laundromats and the apartments and, kind of around the building. But it depends. It's not, you can't just be like, hey, come to a, sexy watershed meeting at 7 o'clock at night. Like, even I don't want to go to that, so you have to make sure that it's accessible on many levels. And I think that we would absolutely strive to do that with this. So does that answer your question?
I'll follow it up with curiosity on as you facilitate, and I think this was raised earlier, working with populations and inviting them or having them get attracted to come and talk about truths on their racial discrimination, which is very traumatizing. And sometimes the very people inviting them look like the people who have historically not trusted, because they're the very same people, not the person standing right there, but that's what they see. And it's triggering to see that and expect, how do you go about gaining the trust or having somebody translate the trust for you and dealing with all those triggers and the re-traumatization. I'm curious about that, and more just putting this out there because I do know it's very, very real. So I'm curious how that is going to be dealt with, especially when the person right there really reminds and brings that out and have that work.
Yes, thank you for bringing that into the conversation. That is on everybody's mind, hearts. When we are asking people to share, there is a possibility for re-traumatization, and certainly with the person that's trying to lead such a process. And so one of the ways has been to really look at diversifying who is going to be doing that. And when I say that, I really mean, who are the people? When we talk about it's going to take a lot of us to do this, we can't it's not just the 3 or 4 people that you see here that'll be leading those. I think that it has to be people in the community that look like their community and are trusted people in their community. And also that there are real resources available for people who experience trauma, that there are resources on hand, people that they can talk to, maybe space that they can be by themselves, maybe there's sensory aspects of it. This is not taken lightly by any sense of the imagination. And so I think we would be very careful in crafting the space, the time, the available resources, who's in the space. So yeah, and I really appreciate the line of question and curiosity that you bring to this, because we need accountability at every turn, every moment. So yeah, and I yield to others that want to add in.
V, just briefly, I wanted to add that in my practice of public engagement over the last 13 or so years, everything that V says mirrors my own experience. And in one community, we set up a program called Conversation Corps, CORPS, which essentially was a way to empower members of all parts of the community we were working in to serve as facilitators for community dialogue in the places that they naturally spent their time. And so instead of expecting the community to come to some scary, as V put it, non-sexy municipal building, they would be convening in theater spaces and coffee houses and churches and places that people like to go. And that's the kind of thing paired with something like a meeting in a box where a community organization could simply self-facilitate potentially their own conversation. Those are the kinds of things that I think we'd like to help bring to the commission's work, and then maybe take a step back and allow, as V put it, members of the Iowa City community to facilitate within their own community.
I just want to add to that it is imperative that we have people in our community that are able to facilitate these conversations, because we know, as Angie pointed out, this is going to be forever. If we're doing it right, then we're doing this for the long haul. And some of the changes that we want, we may not see in our lifetime, but we have to plant those seeds now. And so we have to be equipping people to do this work in our community for generations. And I firmly believe that, what Larry was saying about making sure we have trained people. It has been one of the things that our local team has been pushing since day one, is that we have to make sure this process doesn't lead, like our other teammates who are from out of town don't leave and then this leaves with them. We can't have that. It's not acceptable. And they agree. It's not like I'm saying this and they're not in the room. They're right here. They know that because we've been pushing that, and they believe that too. So, and that's not lip service at all. I think that everybody firmly realizes the need for that.
I would also add into the space just the different outreach that we do in our neighborhood. That it's strategic, but it starts with the low-hanging fruit. Like, is there childcare? Is there a bouncy house? Is there food? Is it like and Larry said, is it at a place or a space or a time where folks already are? So it's nothing new. And practicing and being and having fun, enjoy, and music and dance, like that's part of I don't want to say that's the easy work, because all that takes coordination and all the things and funding, but that we have to practice coming together, and that these are spaces where we gather. And some populations don't even have that, right? They don't even have a building that they go to or are used to coming together and having fun, let alone talking about these very serious issues. So that's something that's important to me, is we're not going to jump in. I'm not going to jump into these hard conversations when we haven't sat back and laughed or smiled near each other, at least near each other. And that takes a lot of work. And you do need people on the ground who know how to affect that in the populations that they come from. So that's another thing I want to just kind of pull into the space, that I hope that we get to these courageous folks coming forward and telling these hard truths. And I also recognize that sometimes it's courageous just to come out and smile.
One other point I would just quickly make is, if you look at peer truth and reconciliation commissions across the United States and into Canada, one thing that's very noteworthy is the fact that while there were public events at which people gathered and came together to be in dialogue and to perhaps bring about some reconciliation, Maine in particular, the state of Maine, collected almost all of its testimony in private, in individual conversations. Now, I'm not suggesting that be the pathway for Iowa City, but I do think it's very important that we as the team be helping to empower members of the community to speak to people privately, to collect their testimony and receive it in whatever way they would like to give it. And that includes not having a face-to-face conversation. Maybe it's a written submission or an audio recording that they make on their own time or something else. So we're determined to provide as many pathways as folks want.
Before I yield, and thank you for those responses, I want to really thank all of you, V, Arnold, Sarah, Angie, Kyle, and Larry, and Eduardo. As earlier on, Amos had said, he has been following the TRC and also Cans and West. We have, and when I use the word we as commissioners, we have learned a lot. I have learned a lot as we go down this path of doing TRC work. Thank you for all that teaching. And for those who are from Iowa City, V and Angie, we meet as we serve our communities. And Arnold from Lynn County, we come across your works as we work. I would also like to thank you for actually stepping up and coming forward to want to work with us and facilitate, letting us know or demonstrating and verbalizing and putting it in writing what you have been doing and proposing what we can do by you facilitating us the TRC for our beloved city of Iowa City and entrusting you with in facilitating that process. I thank you for all that teaching and stepping up and proposing to work with us. Thank you. With that, I will yield. And also, Larry, that reminder of it doesn't always have to be Muhammad going to the mountain. The mountain can come to Muhammad. You just reminded me because twice I have been encouraging the bereaved family, the widow, with her 2 children. And the older one is very challenged in sitting still like me for more than 15 minutes. You've just reminded me because she asked me just before I came in, now Wangui, twice this has failed. And thank you, Amos, for speaking up for that person. Can't those people come and talk to me here? Because Angie, you mentioned childcare and V many times as you talked. And here is somebody who was about, thank you very much. And I will yield. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a comment, Cliff? Is that why you're staring at me?
Right, that's what it is.
Sir, I wanted to thank you for your truth and you coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. It's invigorating, it really is. And stepping up and making sure you voice your concerns. I feel like that's what this is all about in the first place. So I hope that we can help you out the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff.
I can go next. I would say Angie, especially V. I know that the things, and a couple of other people that haven't got to meet in person yet, but the things that you guys have been doing have been just greatly, that's refreshing. Just like you wake up one day and you say, hey, well, they said it's a circle today. So, well, I might have felt bad yesterday, but I'm gonna feel good today. After this circle or after something, I go sit down and meet with them. One of the things that I do want to say, it should not be up to all people of color to solve the differences that are going on in this country. And it also should not be, hey, well, it's because of these white people, they did that. It shouldn't be that either. So I just want to find the middle ground, for something like that. It shouldn't be like, well, white people did this to us, but black people doing this. Well, where's the middle ground at? I think that might be circles, but I'm a yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Do either of you guys have a comment to make? And I just want to, before we let you guys all go, because we're all in different time zones, thank you for your time and effort. I know that we're meeting again on Monday, and I look forward to that. And before we move on, I just want to follow up with stuff really quick. Not that I'm saying we were going to vote, but just because I want to hear the answer.
No, I'm not gonna change my mind. But
It's kind of hard to hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Sorry. I said I'm gonna stick with my initial thoughts that I don't think the agenda provides enough notice. I also would ask you, I guess, as a group to, I mean, it sounds like right now you want to take one vote on recommending them to the city council and another vote on recommending the budget. And I guess just asking you to consider as a group, doesn't need to be decided tonight, but to me, the budget would probably be kind of something that would go into consideration with the proposal, you know, because there may not be a meeting of the minds on the budget, right?
Yeah.
So here you've just, you know, recommended this to city council and then there's a hiccup with the budget. And if it's you know, if it's something that you're wanting to get done sooner than later, I mean, you can always hold a special meeting for that specific purpose. But I think that, in my opinion, there probably should be a budget with the proposal. And while the PowerPoint is very nice and eye-catching, I think there probably needs to be more of a formal document that specifically articulates everybody's role, what the expectations are, et cetera, et cetera.
No, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Stephanie. I think I feel comfortable with that. I think I would assume the team probably feels comfortable with that. I'm going to suggest this to the other commission members as we move in like the next 2 weeks, if we could communicate, and I can send this to Steph so that she can remind you guys. I think that it's important that we have conversations outside of the Thursday meeting, just so we can kind of discuss what the vision of the budget looks like, or any questions or things that I can communicate to the team as they're moving forward with this process. And, you know, like I've said before, I think time is our friend in this matter. There's no like, you know, we move in trust, like we said. So yeah, if anyone has anything else to add.
Do you think it's possible that by our next public meeting that we'll have something on the agenda where we're going to be making a vote with the proposal and the budget?
I personally, I think that we're at that point, but I'm going to leave it. I want to leave it to you guys, especially the local partners. I want to make sure you guys feel comfortable and, you know, everything with that. Okay. Okay. So I think with that being said, I appreciate your guys' time. I will see you all next week. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys later. So our 8th item on the agenda is announcements of staff or commissioners, and just remember not to engage with one another concerning what the announcements are. Steph, anything?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I got one thing.
Oh,
I do this
sorry.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't
Go
even
ahead.
see you guys. I'm so sorry.
I'm just waiting to
I looked
see.
one way.
Y'all, they can go first. So.
Go ahead.
You got it.
No, you can go
Right.
first, bro.
I'll go. I just want to say that on Saturday, the African communities will be having a memorial service for Bernard Gila, the African who has passed on. He is from Kenya. His widow is from Congo. And the service is at St. Patrick's Catholic Church of Scott Boulevard, 12 to 1. It's viewing of the body. 1 to 2 is the service, but I will also send it to the commissioners through through our usual communication, our email. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
Just give an announcement that ICOR Boxing will be hosting with, or iHeart Black Business will be working with iCourt Boxing and hosting a SBA event. That'll be Thursday, March 24th. All are welcome.
Thank you.
Do you have the time on that, Commissioner?
Say again?
Can you give the time on that,
Time is
please?
3 p.m.
Thank you.
Address 391 Highland Avenue, Iowa City.
So my name is Eric Harris. I run a fatherhood group at the Dream City. If anybody is interested in that, everybody in here knows how to get a hold of me. I will also, put out my personal information, but it's a group that put fathers together with other fathers to talk about the difficulties of fatherhood. We meet every Tuesday at 5:30 at the Dream City, which is the Kingdom Center, which is on Southgate and Keokuk. You can always go over there and find us around there. Also, if you need any immediate needs, any of the commissioners or some of the guests on how to get a hold of me. I'm trying to work on that more to put myself out there and put my information out there so people can get a hold of me. It's kind of been going good right now. So we've been doing a whole bunch of things. We've been helping some guys get some housing. We're helping guys get some jobs in the community and things like that. And so that's what we try to do, and we help guys be fathers because I don't know whether male or female, you need a father in your life. That's what's important with that idea.
This is Commissioner Rivera. I just want to name the fact that across the country, particularly in Texas and in Florida and here in Iowa, there's been just a whole slew of anti-LGBTQ legislation that is violence against LGBTQ peoples. I know this is a commission that pertains to racial justice, right? But as in the spirit of Black feminist scholars and leaders who remind us the importance of intersectionality, certainly LGBTQ people of color are at especially increased risk of experiencing the consequences of harmful legislation, such as those that were passed by the Iowa House last week, by the Iowa Senate earlier this week, and signed into law by Governor Reynolds today. So just love on the people in your lives. I think that for minoritized communities, we overemphasize the importance of building resilience and strength. In my work, I think maybe more important is the importance of emphasizing the importance of building up young people's capacity to ask for help and to rely on the communities that support them. So for my fellow commissioners, for the people listening, keep that in mind, please, as you're working with young people and people that you love. Just encourage them to ask for help and to lean on the people who love them. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Daniel, you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I want to take this time to, I don't know if I'm speaking on behalf of the commission, but at least for me, I stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. There's been a lot of misinformation perpetrated by the Russian government to create some sort of dissension between the people of the world in their support of Ukraine. There are accusations and these fake videos out there of allegedly the Ukrainian Polish border security or something not letting Black Ukrainians and African international students who are studying in Ukraine leave as the Russian army is bearing down on the different communities throughout the country. And it's been made fairly clear that is not true. There is a large population of Black people in Ukraine. But most importantly, I think almost everyone here who identifies as someone who, I can't even say non-white, but like, because even the Irish have been colonized, right? So there are so many people, there are more people in the world who are from a background where they were colonized, they were oppressed, they were essentially told their people could not choose their own destinies. And so whatever misinformation is going out there, we hopefully live in a post-colonial world where bigger countries can't just come in and decide that they are the more civilized people or the better people or something like that. And so I really hope that we all just, if we can't publicly as a commission stand in solidarity with Ukraine, I really hope each and every one of my fellow commissioners kind of reach back to what they know of what colonization and oppression have done to them and their people, and kind of stand in solidarity with Ukraine. And with that, I yield.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second, Commissioner Johnson.
Good night, everyone.